All of us have plants in our heritage. That may be the plants that you picked when you were a child, the daisy chain you made at school, a particular plant that your family loves to eat, plants that have always grown around you, plants that you've used in celebrations or memorials, plants that you've always loved in imagery, a memory that you have around a particular plant. I'm sure that if you sit down to think about the plants that are woven into the fabric of your life story, you'll come up with a much longer list than you expected. And when it comes to the beauty industry, we always encourage formulators and beauty brands to connect with the plants in their heritage. After all, those plants are part of who you are as a person. I personally think that lifting up the stories of those plants will help people connect more to the formulations made by the beauty industry. Someone recently asked me why I love what I do, and my answer was simple. I love plants. So today's guest has a rich tapestry in her heritage of the plants from East Asia. She's woven these plants into her life, her career, her story, and yes, also her formulations. If you want to hear exactly what it means to infuse your ancestors' knowledge into the formulations that you could create, then make sure you settle in for a fascinating podcast episode with today's guest, Dr. Jenelle Kim. Welcome to Green Beauty Conversations, the podcast that challenges you to think about how you buy, use, make, or sell your green beauty formulations. In my weekly episodes, I explore the sustainability of the beauty industry and encourage you to join me in changing the beauty industry for the better. I'm your host, Lorraine Dallmeier. I'm a chartered environmentalist, biologist, and the CEO of award-winning online organic cosmetic formulation school, Formula Botanica. We have thousands and thousands of students in over 180 countries around the world who study with us to become organic beauty formulators and entrepreneurs. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com to try our free online formulation course. And if you want to be the first person to know what's happening in green beauty, make sure you subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app. So in today's episode, I'm joined by Dr. Jenelle Kim, a 9th generation master herbologist, doctor of traditional Oriental medicine, best-selling author, and prolifically cited wellness expert who's been featured widely across many publications. She's devoted to integrating the philosophy, ancient medical wisdom, and expertise of East Asia with the advancements of modern life and medicine of the West to touch and positively affect the lives of others. Dr. Kim is a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine and is nationally board certified in herbology, Oriental medicine, and acupuncture in the USA. With almost 20 years in the beauty and wellness industry, Dr. Kim has formulated some of the first all-natural luxury products carried in high-end spas across the world, including, for instance, the Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, Mandarin Oriental, as well as many high-end retailers and natural marketplace stores. Hi, Jenelle. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I am good. And I'm really looking forward to this chat because your story is fascinating. So for those listeners who have not come across you before, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Dr. Jenelle Kim. I'm a 9th generation doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, practitioner of herbology. So I'm a master herbalist and formulator at the lab that I founded called JBK Wellness Labs, not named after myself, but in fact named after my great-grandfather from my Korean lineage. And so that basically the way I always like to ground myself in anything that I do, whether I'm having a conversation or up on stage talking to a group, I always love to take a moment to tell you all and remind myself that, the reason I'm here is because all of my ancestors that came before me dedicated their entire lives, including my father, to understanding the human condition. Mentally, physically, spiritually, but then breaking it down a little bit more, our own bodies, of course, our beauty, our wellness, how we can live optimally, and the formulations that have been studied for centuries upon centuries, and honestly, thousands of years back. That is basically what has been handed down in my particular lineage from generation to generation. And I'm the very first woman in my lineage to be the guardian of these formulas. And so in conclusion, everything is built upon that wisdom and that knowledge of herbal medicine and formulation. That's how we contract manufacture our products at JBK. And that's where my understanding and my education come from and why I feel so devoted to this mission of continuing to share the strength of these formulas for all people.
I completely understand. And I can tell it makes you a bit emotional as well, talking about your lineage, because, wow, you're a 9th generation herbologist. You carry the weight of your ancestors in this journey that you're on. So Can you tell me a little bit more about your family line, going back 9 generations? Because this is utterly fascinating. How does it feel to carry the torch for your ancestors like that?
Yes, I really appreciate that question and the opportunity to speak on this. How does it feel? Yes, I've been doing this now. I'm for 40 years on this earth. I believe I was put here to do so. We all have a choice. So it's not like when I was born or when I was young, I was told this is what I had to do. And that's part of the beauty. It was in my early adulthood. I think I was around 20 years old, 19, 20, when it hit me that this is what I have to do with my life. I was actually on the road to studying Western medicine. But ultimately, to kind of go back a bit, the beautiful thing that I don't always have the chance to share, because not everyone asks in this manner, is that actually my lineage, the truth of the matter is it comes from both sides, from my father's side. So my father's Korean, my mother's American. I always love to acknowledge that. That's a huge part of, honestly, everything that I do, East, West, old, new. And you'll see this in the formulations we make and the education that I give. But in my father's lineage from Korea, it actually comes from my family lineage, my bloodline, but also it comes from one of my father's main teacher, which actually I write about in my book, where we speak briefly on medicine, but more about philosophy. And his name is Master Borian. And so it's a really beautiful thing because we had a few teachers, my father included, I'm sure his master included, or his teacher, and myself. So it really, although it comes from a family lineage, we have so many different formulations, of course, again, for skincare, body care, hair care, internal supplements, so on and so forth. It also comes from the lineage of my father's teacher and so on. So it's a really beautiful thing, actually. So lineage and your ancestors, of course, comes from our bloodlines, who we are. We wouldn't be here without them. But also, I love to acknowledge that it also comes from great teachers in that line. So it's a pretty amazing thing.
That is incredible. So you're the custodian of your family's proprietary herbal formulas for health and beauty that have obviously been handed down over a long period of time. Can you give us any insight into how you received this or even what's in them?
Yes, I appreciate that. So, I was starting to go there and wanted to get to that part of my story and my lineage. But ultimately, from the time I was born onto this earth, as I had started, I saw that these formulas are always a part of our life. It was not even something you thought about, and that's what I wish for this part of our world, particularly in Western culture and Western societies. In Asia, it is, you'll go there and you'll see that it's just part of their lifestyle and their culture and the way that they eat and the supplements that they take. You can go to a market on the street and be drinking ginseng drinks, which is one of the herbs that I will, of course, share. So to some extent, that's a huge part of, what I wish to share with all of us. So that's that. And then you also want to know, I know we're going to dive into some of the herbal ingredients as well. So it's a very long story, but is there something in particular, Lorraine, that you would like to know?
Oh, well, no, I'm just fascinated about how that would feel to receive these proprietary formulas from families, from this lineage, and to be like, wow, this has been given to me. This has been gifted to me. And I am now the custodian of this. And I know families often have this with food recipes, for instance. I've not come across anyone before who's had this with health and beauty formulas. So I find this absolutely fascinating.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes. And you said it perfectly, because sometimes I go to explain that when people try to understand, well, what are these proprietary formulations? How is this handed down? And as I began to say, in Asian culture, it's something that's part of the culture. So for example, you'll go to a medicine store, an herbal medicine clinic, for example, and you'll see, let's say, a cough syrup. Okay. And many of you may see this now. Loquat syrup is something that's come into our cultures, and very, very wonderfully so, because it's for a dry cough, right? So if you have a lingering cough, many people, and if you don't, I'm telling you, you go and you get loquat. It's for a specific kind. Now, when you go to the store and you purchase loquat syrup, oftentimes you'll literally see a person's face right there on the bottle. It's those ancestors. It's the people who created this formulation. It's been handed down. So that just gives you an idea of how much it is instilled in that understanding of Eastern medicine, Eastern philosophy, which has existed literally for 10,000 years. And so, yes, in my family, it means so incredibly much. Growing up with this, it was a part of life. But it was, as I briefly started to mention before, around 1920, when I was on my road to studying Western medicine, that's where it really hit me. Because for whatever the reason, all the stars aligned. And at that point in my life, I was around a few instances in particular, different conditions that I saw nothing could help. And the only thing that helped were the formulas that we had in our family. So growing up, certain doctors would, or friends, or whatever that looks like, would contact our family and we would give out certain formulas, but it was in no way, shape, or form any particular system of doing so. And then when I was about 19, 20, like I said, I saw a few things happen where I thought, the world has to know about this. This part of the world has to understand that there's answers to a lot of conditions that people feel that there are no answers to, or there's a lot of medication, that might lead to even worse side effects. And let me be very clear before we even begin this conversation. I'm a huge proponent of Eastern, Western, old, new. But what I wish to share is we have to know when to use what. And that is a really important piece. So kind of to conclude that, when I was about 19, 20, there was a particular person in my life, a wonderful woman, very brilliant. She was an incredible dermatologist in the Northwest. And we had given her some formulations, particularly for troubled skin. And she's the one who a few people had contacted me, but her in particular, she called me and she said, at the time I was not a doctor, she said, Jenelle, you have to do something with these formulas. I've never seen them. I have studied skin my entire life and have all of the formulas, and I've never seen anything do what these formulas did. And so I must say she was the first to kind of start me on this path, because I really thought I'd have clinics my whole life and treat patients just like my great-grandfather, Jenelle Kim, which is what my lab is named after. So that's kind of how I began in the skincare, in the spa industry. So it holds kind of a special place in my heart.
And what a beautiful story, what a beautiful lineage you bring to your career that you now run in cosmetic formulation, also traditional Eastern medicine. And
Yes.
I know we'll come to some of that
Yes.
in a minute. So tell me a bit about your private label manufacturing practice, because you said these formulations have become part of my life. They literally have in your case, because you've even turned it into a contract and custom manufacturing practice. What do you do there? Tell us a little bit more about how all of that works.
Yeah. So again, we kind of touched on it because there's so much to touch on. And I was saying, you said it perfectly. The best way to understand these secret formulas or the secrets of the formulation process, let's say, and of the ingredients, you said it perfectly. It's a recipe. And if we think of it that way, it's much more easy to understand what has been passed down. So what I speak of around the world, what my lab is built upon, and then I'll lead into why we have private label even right now, is this understanding that although herbal ingredients in general are so incredibly important, true herbologists, as my father studied in the mountains of East Asia with his teacher, for example, a little different than, even my experience. But it's so, herbologists can spend an entire lifetime studying one herb. Like that is the depth of herbal medicine. I mean, we can just take for a moment and wrap our head around that. One whole life on one herb. That is how much an herbologist can devote their life, for example, to ginseng or angelica, astragalus. But true formulation, and what I speak on, what I follow through with at my lab with my husband, that's why I said Craig Nandu, is the understanding of those ingredients, but the synergy between the ingredients leading to the perfect recipe. Exactly how you said it. So that synergy of ingredients is actually the most important thing when it comes to proper formulation. Skincare, body care, internal supplements, nootropics, it does not make a difference. Okay. That is the key, because our body, what I explain in short is our body, we can have the best ingredients in the world, but if they're not properly synergistically combined together, our body won't accept them. Maybe for a minute, it'll feel that way, but our body won't absorb and assimilate all of the good properties that we wish our body to do. And so that's a really key point. So that's what I focus on at JBK Wellness Labs. And for about 20 years, we've been in this business. I started, as I said, in the spa industry, which was very special. We were at the forefront of natural products. You and I had a brief conversation about that. Can we all stop for a second and recognize that 20 years ago, which feels like a long time, but isn't really, natural products, that wasn't even a thing. I had to constantly discuss. Yes. I mean, it's a crazy thing. Now, clean beauty, natural, still, I feel like it has not penetrated even nearly enough. But there was a time that no one even blinked an eye. And herbal medicine, nonetheless, or plant medicine, botanicals, I was way over everyone's head. I would show up at some of these amazing, actually, I was just at one of them, just came back literally last night at International Aesthetic Spa and Cosmetic Conference, right? So IECSC. I spoke to a group of about 300 people. It was so incredibly special, speaking on not just the formulation, but the other things we can do in our life, the ancient secrets of beauty and wellness. And I had to take a moment when everyone was in that room in the beginning to acknowledge. And I was very grateful that everyone took that moment with me, because 20 years ago, when I walked into a show just like that, and I know the founders of that, they're amazing. But when I spoke on herbal medicine, they would say, "Oh, Jenelle, that's really nice, but no one's going to get it." Or like natural products. Yeah, we don't, it's okay. Let's pass on, and here we are today. So, so that's what we focus on at JBK, customizing, contract manufacturing. What that means is we work with brands carried all over the world Really kind of focus more on the high-end retail because it is natural, botanical, very active, synergistically combined. So our brands are carried in your high-end spas, Ritz-Carlton, Mandarin, your Nordstrom's, Neiman Marcus, Bergdorf, Harrods. And now in the US, even Walgreens, CVS, they're coming out with these divisions that they have products that are higher quality, that are natural, that follow certain standards of clean beauty. And so it's a really amazing thing. So we focus on the contract manufacturing, the custom side of things, which means that someone comes to our lab with an ingredient, with an idea. Sometimes they come with a formula and just haven't had very much luck on producing it and bringing it to the market. And we develop a formulation, we batch it, we produce it, goes through the production line, we fill it, we put it in boxes, and we send it to the client. And so that's what we've done for a long time. And we're so incredibly excited. What we just launched at the show I just said in Las Vegas this past week is our private label division. And this is incredibly, incredibly important. And I learned something when I was there this last weekend that in my mind, the same thing I experienced with the medicine that's been passed down, the movement, the philosophy, there's times where I feel that because it's such a part of my life and it has been, and I'm so grateful for that from the time I was born, basically, I have to admit to you all, I forget that a lot of people are not aware. And one thing I for sure thought that people would be aware of is private label. And I have to tell you, so many people at the show had no idea what private label was, and it blew my mind. Okay. And especially this is the beautiful community that you've created because it's so important. Particularly, we have opened this division for independent spas, independent estheticians, your massage therapists, you name it. Those are my peers as well. And I care very much. And so ultimately, we're so excited that we now have this private label. And why that's exciting, and I know you know this, but I've come to find that not a lot of people do. So when you contract manufacture, oftentimes for our lab, for example, you cannot create one product unless you create 5,000. So the minimum order quantities are very high. And that's because it's customized. And so the truth is, even if we were to lower that, it wouldn't do anyone any good. The price would skyrocket because you have to buy ingredients, packaging. That's kind of the whole understanding. But with private label, we have formulas that I've loved for 20 years. Some of my favorite formulas that are now basically in stock. We carry inventory and they come in beautiful packaging. They're ready to go and you are able to brand yourself. So you put your own logo on it. And so, there are certain companies out there where we differ kind of in conclusion is that these formulas do carry that knowledge and wisdom of the herbal medicine that's been passed down in my lineage. So you'll find it beautiful, proprietary, perfect blend of herbs and botanicals combined with some of our age-old, that's a pun, but anti-aging, if you will. I like to say longevity because there's no such thing as anti-aging. Blends of the old and the new kind of ingredients coming together. And that's what our private label division is, that now people can also purchase at 25 units, not 5,000, but 25 minimum order quantity per product. And so it means a lot to us to be able to open the doors this way.
That's incredible. First of all, congratulations on launching this entirely new division, which I'm sure wasn't an easy undertaking.
Nope.
It sounds really exciting because
yes,
private label can be a bit boring. I know that what you're doing is very far from boring because it sounds incredible. But you know what? I have seen so many private label manufacturers over the years who just do the same thing over and over and over. It's like when you go into the supermarket and you look at the rows of products on the shelves and it's all the same formulation, just packaged in a different way. But you stand out from the crowd by using these traditional Eastern herbs, this wisdom that has been passed down to you. So let's talk a little bit about plants. Can you run me through a handful of your favorites for formulation and tell me a little bit more about how you use them?
Absolutely. So some of my favorite herbs to use in our formulations that have been passed down include, as I just said, ginseng root. I mean, I'm half Korean. I'm Korean. Of course, we love ginseng root. It can do everything. And the beautiful thing about ginseng, for example, is that in Chinese, so of course I studied Chinese medicine. So I'm a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine because the medicine started in China and that's the way it works, right? And then it moved over to Korea, to Japan. And Korea is known to kind of advance, if you will, herbal medicine, through the Dongi Bokam and a very famous practitioner who my lineage connects to, Hojen. Okay. And so we don't have to go into all of that, but I know that's important to you. And so basically I can't say necessarily deeper, but for lack of a better way of putting it, it's a deeper understanding of herbal medicine. So I think that's important for everyone to understand that. So here we walk. And when I study an ingredient like ginseng, the Chinese word for it is renshen. And ren means human. And this is the beautiful thing, thousands upon thousands of years ago. And I love educating on this. They didn't have books to read. I studied for still constant study in the books and the writing and staying up all night. Well, way thousands of years ago, they didn't have books like that. They didn't have pens and highlighters and Post-it notes. And so they would study these beautiful herbs in the way that my father did and his teacher did in the mountains of East Asia, for example. And, there's benefits to both. So don't get me wrong, but we do have to take a moment to recognize that oftentimes the way that they even began to study these herbal ingredients was literally for survival. So they were not doing well. They may not even live. And they had to find these herbs or these different modalities and tools, how acupuncture even came about. So here they have renshen, one of the most prized herbs in existence, ginseng. So I don't know exactly who did it or how it became because it was too long ago, but they named this beautiful herb renshen. Ren means human, because when you look at that root, that ginseng root, and if all of you want to take a moment to do this at some point, it looks like a human being. It's really interesting. So if you look, it has a head, it has arms, it has legs, and that is because it has such powerful effects on the entire human body. Honestly, mentally, physically, spiritually. That is the truth, meaning it can help us to calm. It can help to give us energy. It can help. And so that same thing applies to our skin cells when synergistically combined in a formulation properly. So that is, I won't spend this much time on every herb, but it's certainly, as you can see, I think my whole life, there will never be a moment that it does not, bring this part out of me. But so ginseng root is one of the most important herbs. It is adaptogenic. That's something I will speak on often. About 20 years ago, I started speaking about adaptogenic herbs a lot as another way to help people understand herbal medicine. So the word adaptogen came, and the other herbs I'm going to name are adaptogenic herbs. The word adaptogen and that understanding came at about, if I remember correctly, around the 1940s. And they started realizing that there's certain plant medicine, plant ingredients, if you will, roots, fruits, you name it, mostly roots. That's what we work with a lot, such as the ginseng root, such as astragalus root, which is what I'm going to get into here. But adaptogenic herbs are ones that help your body to adapt. It's kind of similar to how we think of wines, grapes and wine, right? So they have to go through certain harsh conditions, and that's what makes the beautiful taste. Well, the same thing goes for an understanding of adaptogenic herbs. And this is a principle that goes into herbal medicine for, centuries ago. And so ginseng is one of those where when you put it into your body, because it went through such harsh conditions and it survived, basically, it was able to adapt. When you put it into your body, it does the same. So in particular, ginseng is one of the most powerful ingredients for cell rejuvenation, for increasing circulation of blood and qi. And qi is vital energy, something I speak on a lot, and something that's so important for us to at least have some understanding of. Because when we start to work with these ingredients and understand how they affect qi, which is how Chinese medicine, Eastern medicine talked about it for thousands of years, it really becomes that much more easy to understand, more applicable of how we can take care of ourselves and take care of our patients. So that's kind of a herbal medicine 101. But so ginseng root, one of my faves, astragalus root, also an adaptogen, one of the most important ingredients. And a lot of studies have been done on this as well, where they might not necessarily study the entire root, but different properties of the root. I, of course, stand by the entire root because it has properties in and of itself working together that allow for the incredible effects. But astragalus root is so good for lifting and for firming. So that's something you'll find me putting into skincare products, but internal products as well. Then we have angelica root, one of my absolute favorites, dankui. In fact, that herb, you have to know how to use even that one herb because it has a head and a tail if you look at it. And the tail, it has more properties for movement. So I always say when I speak around the world, the most important thing for beauty and wellness is function and flow. So if we are able through formulation, through lifestyle choices such as eating, not stressing so much, make sure that our body is functioning properly because it knows what to do if we're able to allow it, right? Including our skin cells. If our skin cells are functioning and we have flow of circulation of blood and qi and oxygenation, and through that flow, we also eliminate what's not good for us. That truly is the ultimate key. And so angelica, and in that one ingredient, the head is actually more nourishing. So it nourishes and does all of that part of the function. And actually the tail of that root, when used correctly, can actually help that flow. So how beautiful in one ingredient, just to show you all, it can have that many different properties. And you have to know how to even use parts of the one herb. So those are a couple. Jujube, goji berry. Yes.
Amazing.
I could go on, as you can tell, for hours.
No, it's wonderful to hear your passion about these different plants. How have they been received by the brands that you've worked with? Because you've obviously been infusing these amazing plants into the formulations you make.
Yes.
How have they been received?
So as I said, 20 years ago, people thought it sounded great. And, our marketing was pretty. And when they used the formulas, like something's different here, which is how we started getting in as this small independent company that I worked with at the time before manufacturing, kind of helping to brand and market. And it went over everyone's head. They didn't really understand. But I have to say, some people will, especially when we get to know each other, will react a bit like, oh, Jenelle, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they said that to you. Jenelle, the Korean thing's nice, but people aren't going to get it. But I have to tell you all, it never ruffled my feathers. That's just maybe who I am. But somewhere deep down, I always knew that I do come from this lineage. I do know these formulations. And the beautiful thing is it applies to all human beings. I'm human, you're human. And you may not understand yet what it is that I'm wishing to share and what it is that these formulas do. But if I do my job properly and continue to communicate properly, then we're all going to get it. And here we are, fast forward 20 years. And Korean beauty, plant medicine, herbal medicine is literally everywhere, right? And so I'm glad I was steadfast in that way. And so now I find that people are literally hungry for it, especially after the last couple of crazy years that the whole world went through. I don't want to keep discussing it, but let's just acknowledge that how many times in life, certainly in my lifetime, I never saw a time where basically everyone was concerned about their health. Everyone in some way, shape, or form. And the beauty, the positive that came from that is that everyone became aware. And now people are open and they're looking for this. So everywhere I go, people are looking and are starting to understand that much more, which I'm so happy. The difference between, you said it perfectly, and it's amazing how many people don't know that when you go to the store, most of these products all come from the same pool. And there's certain big, and I'm very thankful for them. They serve a purpose. But there's these big manufacturers and all they do all day long is put out, a moisturizer or a shampoo or a conditioner. And basically, a lot of the big companies are also private labeling. We know this because we make the formulas for those big companies that then private label. And so that's the beautiful thing is that now the doors are more open for exactly like what we're doing with private label, where the doors are open and now everyone can experience true formulation, good for you, actual, the clean beauty, that whole conversation as well, where there's greenwashing and you have to be careful because someone could be saying it's natural or plant medicine and you look at their ingredients. And if you don't know, which I don't expect everyone to know. It's not your job. You're not the experts. You don't have to be, but it's unfortunate because there's a lot of misinformation out there, but that's changing for sure.
I'm fairly sure that you're playing a big role in changing that too, which is incredible. One final question before we end this fascinating interview is, what's next for your business?
Yes. So, there's a lot of things I do behind the scenes. I really do speak on, which I didn't really discuss and don't want to spend too long here, but something I feel very passionate. I just spoke at IECSC about are the 3 M's. That is truly the understanding. It is medicine, meditation, and movement. And how if we are able to incorporate these things in our life, that all comes down to medicine. That's the thing. These 3 main pillars all come down to medicine and how we take care of ourselves. So I'm doing so many things right now to share everything I can with people, everything rooted in medicine, because that is ultimately my passion. And like I said, with this private label division as well, my heart is really there. And I am so happy we finally opened these doors for everyone and anyone, because although I've spent a lot of time, because that's what I'm rooted in and what these formulas do to help people. And furthermore, when you give them to your patients or clients, how much you will help them, but also for the success of your business, of all of those out there, because I understand it's not so easy, and when we love what we do, we won't want to be thinking about that aspect, but we live in this reality. And with private label, your margins are so much bigger because as we were just saying, I make the products behind the bigger brands that you buy products from. And that's a wonderful thing. I'm not saying to stop that, but have a chance to put your own brand on it. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands. And furthermore, then to have a bigger margin. So instead of buying a serum at $30 and then selling it for $60, you can buy a very good quality, at least through us. And there might be others out there for sure, but I know ours at least. You can buy a serum at $10 and sell it for $50, $60. I mean, can you imagine how much more beneficial? And another thing I heard a lot at the show, and I'm very aware of, things have changed over the last 20 years, is the competition. So if you stand by a brand, carry it by all means. I think that's wonderful. However, what's happening is there's so much competition. So you do all the work to educate your clients on a certain brand, you use it in treatment, And then what happens is they can go out and they can buy it on Amazon, or they can buy it on that on that company's website. And I heard so many people communicate that is just killing their business. And if your business is not alive, guess what? You can't help people anyways. So I'm very passionate about the private label division as well. So
amazing.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like you have fantastic plans ahead. Jenelle, it's been fascinating talking to you today. I love what you're doing. Where can people find out more about you and your work?
Thank you so much. So you can certainly find me on my website, JenelleKim.com, JENELLE Kim.com. I'm definitely much more active. I've embraced social media because I can talk to everyone out there. And so I'm very active on Instagram, Dr. Jenelle Kim, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the things. And then we just launched JBK, B as in boy, JBK private label. And actually we literally just launched this website. But the idea is that we make it very easy for you. You can order online. Of course, we're always here, our customer service and us as a lab to answer any questions and help along the way. We make design incredibly simple. So you have label templates that you can choose from. If you need help finding a website developer, a packaging, whatever that looks like, we've been doing this for 20 years. So we just really, really want to help. I want to help those that have kind of are now walking this path. I just believe in that. So that's incredible. All the places you can find. And then on my book for anyone who's interested.
What's your book called, just so we know?
It's Myeongsang, The Korean Art of Living Meditation, by Penguin Random House and Watkins. And so it's kind of the principles behind everything we talked about today. So
incredible. Well, we will put links to all of those links and websites and the book in our show notes. Jenelle, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge how much that you do for the community that you've created and so many of us. So thank you very much. I know how much you put your heart into everything and educating properly and sharing. And if you are not if no one has said this to you recently, let me be the one. So thank you as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. No one's ever done that before on the podcast. Thanks a lot.
Well, I'm happy I did then.
There you go. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Have you ever worked with any of the plants that Jenelle talks about? Ginseng, astragalus, angelica, or what are the plants in your heritage? Tell me what you think. Leave us a comment on our social channels, as both the Formula Botanica team and I love hearing from you. And if you want to hear more about some of the topics we covered, please do delve back into the podcast archives. Go and listen to episode 153, in which my guest, Ekwe Chukwuji Nene, tells me all about the plants and ingredients that she discovered that help women with textured hair. Or episode 151, in which my guest, Dr. Candice Parrish, shares the history of slavery in soap making, another rich heritage story that's often overlooked. Or episode 91, in which I interview Formula Botanica graduate Sandra Velasquez, the founder of Nopalera, an amazing brand, on how she infused her heritage into her beautiful Mexican body care brand. There is a wealth of information in our old episodes, and I do encourage you to go back and listen to them. Thank you for joining Jenelle and I for this latest episode of Green Beauty Conversations. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave us a 5-star review so that other people can enjoy these conversations too. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever your favorite podcast app is, and stay tuned for the next episode. Follow Formula Botanica at Formula Botanica on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And come and give me a follow at Lorraine Dallmeier on Instagram as well. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com and sign up for our free online formulation course today.